for our sister. That proverb was right. The Spirit will not descend.
That's right.
Without a song. Didn't she bring the Spirit here? Give it up again. Dr. Cornel West, without a doubt, you have been our intellectual rock. No fishes in your mind. Or as a quintessential scholar, you have trained yourself, having been an excellent student in Sacramento. You went on to Harvard, Princeton. Now you're at Union. But the thing that we love about you is that with your unspoken, incredible intellect, you never trained yourself away from your people. And you not permitted your people to make you pedestrian and mediocre. You are one of the greatest scholars to be found anywhere, south of heaven, north of hell. We welcome you to this sacred space. And against the backdrop of some history, pulpit is down there, because we have a point and a prop. For it was on February the 24th, 1958, that one Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke before that sacred desk. And according to the San Francisco Chronicle, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who led the Negro bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama, 2 years ago, declared here yesterday that segregation is dead as a doornail. End of quote. And I quote him, "The only thing I'm uncertain about is the day of its burial." He attributed the death of segregation to the Supreme Court decision outlawing it in public schools and to world opinion and the power of God. The young minister said he had assumed his duties in the Montgomery bus boycott with deep concern for social justice and social problems. I quote him again, "It wasn't enough for me to just preach on Sunday morning without trying to correct the social conditions that often make people bad." Reverend Mr. King addressed a standing room only congregation of more than 1,000 yesterday morning in the Third Baptist Church, 1399 McAllister. Doctor, we welcome you with a relevant question. Is segregation dead? Is racism dead in this nation? And the second question is, do we have enough prophets left in the land who will not be puppets but prophets standing on the wall. And in the tradition of Rabbi Singer and his dear wife, saying, let justice run down as waters and righteousness as an ever-flowing stream. Talk to us. Grade us. What kind of mark would you give us on these two issues? We have maybe one more, but for now, that's the question. Dr. Cornel West, let's hear our teacher.
Lord, no, let us salute the visionary, the courageous, prophetic Reverend Dr. Amos C. Brown. Nobody like him. 46 years of high-quality service to Third Baptist Church. Oh, yes. You've got geniuses and giants come out of Jackson, Mississippi. What he didn't say was that 2 years earlier, at 15 years old, he was driven in the same car as the one and only Medgar Evers from Mississippi to San Francisco at the NAACP convention. What he didn't say is that he's the only one alive who was in the class that Martin Luther King Jr. taught in college. I think it was along with Professor Samuel Williams. Is that right? Both of them taught it together. Absolutely. Julian Bond was his classmate. And look at him now. Strong as ever. Dignity, grace, still sacrifice. And let us be very clear. Anybody who decides to pastor black people are people who've been taught to hate themselves. Are people traumatized for 400 years, terrorized for 400 years, chronically hated for 400 years. And he says, I'm going to be part of that cloud of witnesses that in the face of hatred, I'll be a love warrior in the face of terror. I'll be a freedom fighter in the face of trauma. I'll be a wounded healer, not a wounded hurter. That's who we're talking about when you're talking about Reverend Amos C. You know what that C stands for? Cleophas. Gut Bucket Genius, Mississippi. And the first pastor of this church, one and only Charles S. Satchel. The founder of my church, Shiloh Baptist Church. Both of them on the chocolate sides of town. Both of them shaped and molded at the highest level of leadership by Mississippi brothers. Willie P. Cook was my pastor, straight out of Gut Bucket, Jim Crow, Mississippi. Baptized a little Negro named Cornel West 61 years ago, and I intend to be faithful unto death. I'm going to be true to what has shaped and molded me in Shiloh Baptist Church, Third Baptist Church, Shiloh Baptist Church, going hand in hand. And I don't know if Reverend Amy Rogers Jones is here. Oh, Lord, you know I want to give you a hug. One of the most sophisticated, subtle, sharp graduates of Union Theological Seminary, now one of the pastors. Give it up for Reverend Amy Rogers Jones. Question. We're talking about a tradition of a great people. And the question becomes, how do you keep it alive? How do you keep the bread of life fresh so it doesn't get stale? How do you keep the kingdom of God connected to your soul so you don't end up turning the blood at the foot put it across in the Kool-Aid. You can just dip in to keep moving, to get your next commodity in possession, to get your status, get your wealth, get your peacock position. No, you at the bottom of that cross, that blood is shaping you and molding you in such a way that the memory of your grandmama shot in your soul. You want to put a smile on her face in the name of love, in the name of freedom, in the name of wounded healing. When you raise the question, is slavery still alive? All you got to do is go to the mass incarceration regime to see neo-slavery. Is Jim Crow still alive? Jim Crow Jr. is breakdancing, strong as ever. Legal Jim Crow is gone. Courageous brothers and sisters of all colors, disproportionately chocolate, like our precious Jewish brothers and sisters here, singers. See, to love freedom and to love justice is not a function of skin pigmentation. It's a function of your spiritual formation and your ethical cultivation and your moral action. John Brown wasn't no joke. And Clarence Thomas is my brother, but he's my political foe. It ain't a question of what color, gender, sexual orientation. The question of what kind of choice you make, what kind of commitment you got. And most importantly, as we noted earlier today with Mary Ellen Pleasant, they used to always say, I'd rather be a corpse than a coward. God can't use no cowards. Part of the greatness of black people is precisely that we have to deal with the 400 years effects of slavery and Jim Crow and Jane Crow. And what are those effects? It was the attempt to take a dignified African people and to niggerize us all the way down. And when you niggerize an African people, you try to convince them they're less beautiful than they are. They're less intelligent than they are. They're less moral than they are. They have less power than they have. And then you keep them so scared that they want to kowtow to the powers that be and laugh when it ain't funny and scratch when it don't itch and always wearing the mask thinking that somehow they've got to negotiate and navigate through a mainstream and get patted on the back by the powers that be. No, Third Baptist Church says Jesus will de-niggerize you, will take that fear out of you, allow you to be unintimidated, allow you to speak frankly and speak deeply so you could sing like our sister. In times like these, does your anchor hold? Coming out of the 6th chapter of Ephesians, what kind of armor do you really have? Are you ready to get on that train that Curtis Mayfield said, people get ready? Are you really ready? You don't need a ticket, but you don't have courage if you're just conformist and complacent and complicit, if you're scared, if you're... You know what I'm trying to say. Courage is the enacting virtue of all the other virtues. Because if you're scared all the time, then all the other virtues just sounding brass and tinkling cymbal. They empty and vacuous. That's why Marcus Garvey would always leave with a black man with the banner. What did the banner say? The Negro is not afraid. That's why James Baldwin's line in his letter to his nephew, don't, be afraid. That's why Brother Martin would say over and over again, I'd rather be dead than afraid. Toni Morrison's novel, A Mercy, the first line, don't be afraid. We ain't even got to the 10th chapter of Matthew yet. 3 times, don't be afraid. That's how you undergo deniggerization. To get that in outside of you. That's why we like Malcolm X. 57 years ago in 4 days, he was shot down like a dog in Audubon Ballroom, wasn't he? But what was it about him that makes us love so? Because he loved us so. He wasn't afraid. He said what he meant. He meant what he said. Even when he was wrong, he meant what he said. When he changed his mind, he meant what he said. Part of our problem today, we got too many folk posing, posturing. They'll say anything to get through a situation, but it ain't for real. Ashford and Simpson say, ain't nothing like the real thing. And you see, in times like these, organized greed is running amok. Where institutionalized hatred is running amok. Howard Thurman called them the hounds of hell. Hatred, greed, fear, and it's not a function of skin pigmentation. It's a battle taking place on each and every one of our souls. That's what a lot of people tell me, brother. They say, well, how come you go on television and call people gangsters? Because I got gangster in me. So I know what a gangster is. I know what a gangster is. Gangster before I met Jesus, and now I'm a redeemed sinner with gangster proclivities. Oh yes, I need renewal all the time. Pray for me. I need Holy Ghost injection. Telling you the truth. Because if you're really on the battlefield, and the question of segregation and slavery was what? A 400-year war against black people, against black dignity, against black sanity, against black a quest for freedom. And they tried to tell us over and over again, black love is a crime. Anybody who loves black people, you ought to get ready to be criminalized, assassinated, incarcerated, misunderstood, misconstrued, lied on, rebuked, and scorned. But if you have your anchor holds deep, that black love is going to be so powerful, just like they thought that they crushed Jesus on the cross of the Roman Empire after he ran out the money changers in the temple. That temple was an edifice, the biggest edifice west of Rome, with 400 troops of the Roman Empire protecting it. He went in there anyway out of what? Love. We can just put on John Coltrane's The Love Supreme and understand what I'm talking about. Stevie Wonder's Love and the Need of Love. Know what I'm talking about. OJ's Love Train. These are not just forms of entertainment. These are love warriors. Toni Morrison's beloved. Love warriors. Reverend Dr. Amos C. Brown, 46 years of loving black folk, trying to deniggerize black folk and tell them, you don't hate yourself, quit violating yourself, quit flagellating yourself, quit moving towards self-destruction. There is an alternative. The love train is here. Get under that cross and let that blood shape you in such a way that you straighten your back up. And anytime, every day, people, God's children, straighten their backs up. They're going somewhere, because folk can't ride your back unless it's bent. This is what Third Baptist is about. So even as we experience the imperial meltdown, dear sister and brother mentioned the Ukraine. The children in Ukraine have exactly the same value as the children in any other nation in the world. Black babies, brown babies, indigenous babies, Jewish babies, Palestinian babies, Arab babies, Muslim babies, Eskimo babies. I learned in Vacation Bible School, Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world, red or yellow, black or white. They are precious in his sight. And then you see the hypocrisy Anytime you go to war, you get all of this money flowing, billions of dollars, trillions of dollars. I thought you didn't have no money when it comes to poverty. I thought you didn't have no money when it comes to health care. I thought you didn't have no money when it comes to quality education. I thought you didn't have no money when it comes to poor people catching hell. I thought you didn't have no money when we try to build on the genius of Hebrew scripture. What is the genius of Hebrew scripture? You spread that hesed, that steadfast love, that loving kindness to the orphan and the widow, the fatherless and the motherless, the persecuted, the subjugated, those who have been degraded. That's what greatness is. It ain't got nothing to do with the success in the world. Let the success of the world go. If you opt only for success, you still end up empty. What does America gain if it controls the whole world and has already lost its soul? That's the question of black people. For 400 years we've been raising that question. And look where we are now. You could call it a chickens come home to roost moment. The genocide that we denied of our indigenous brothers. How many times you seen folk on television of all colors? America has the original sin of slavery. Quit lying. The first sin was the treatment of our indigenous brothers and sisters. The second one was the enslavement of African people. And we don't have to talk about our suffering to push other people's suffering off the historical stage. We're not going to slap grandmama in the face. She told us to love everybody. Because the Jesus that this sister sang about is what sustained our grandparents, sustained our great-grandparents, sustained some of us who still make Jesus our choice. And for those who don't, choice you make. I'm still with Malcolm. He makes an Islamic choice. I'm still with the prophetic Judaic brothers and sisters. They make a choice of Yahweh with Esther and Amos and Isaiah. I'm with Sister Bell Hooks. You know, we just lost Bell Hooks. Giant that she was. She's a Buddhist sister. I'm with Gandhi. He's a Hindu brother. James Baldwin's agnostic. What is it, agnostic? Don't really sure whether they believe in God. Maybe on Monday, doubting on Wednesday, turning the corner on the weekend. The variety of voices. And Third Baptist is about the anthem of black people that we just heard from the Johnson brothers of Jacksonville, Florida. Lift every voice. It doesn't say lift every echo. And oh, we got so many echoes, especially among our black bourgeoisie. Especially among the black middle class.
Tell us.
Especially among our black professional managers. It's just so obsessed with success. They make success an idol and give up too often on a quest for spiritual greatness and moral excellence. And somewhere I've read, he or she is greatest among you will be your servant to the least of thee. That's what greatness is. I was looking for that on Super Bowl halftime. Oh, I was looking for it. Oh, the greatest tradition of the modern world is black musicians who are the vanguard of our struggle because they are most free, most visionary. They're not obsessed with the white gaze. They don't care what's going on the vanilla side of town, which means you don't have to put them up and worship them. You don't have to put them down and trash them. They just over there as another set of humanity. That's what you heard in this music. But what happened at that halftime? Segregation, slavery, slave mentality, still working. All of that genius and talent in the music and hip hop. Success. Let's wait and see what they're going to do with that success. Who's going to bear witness like Tommy Smith and John Carlos? Who's going to bear witness like Muhammad Ali and Althea Gibson? Who's going to bear witness like if they had Nina Simone or Curtis Mayfield or Gil Scott-Heron up there? Can you imagine what they would have done with that platform of 1.6 billion people all around the world? And there's our tradition. There's our black folk. There's our black artists. What you got to say to the world? You should have come through Third Baptist and got a word before you went there. Sit down and talk to Brother Brown. He would have given him a word, just like Mexico City. And you don't do it in order to act as if you some great freedom fighter, because all of us are cracked vessels. It's trying to love our crooked neighbor with our crooked hearts. Before we go.
Dr. West.
For glory. Yes.
Tell us, why is it that we don't love ourselves enough to demand that we deserve reparations? And in what form should it come? And who's entitled to receive it?
Oh, yes.
Dr. Davis here doing an excellent job of leading this task force.
Magnificent job.
All the members of the task force who are in the audience, stand up. There's Brother Eric McDonald, who is our chairperson. Doctor, take us to the next level and deal with how our watering holes have been destroyed throughout this nation. And why is it that some feel that it doesn't matter, or it's just gone? Tell us of the power and the positive effect of a people having its own watering hole and at the same time reaching out to others. We have lost in this city since 1970 over 40,000 black people. Still losing them. The Fillmore is no more. And yet, the city of St. Francis, where we claim to be progressive and liberal, with all these billionaires that are in town, some of us are schemish and scared to say San Francisco owes the revitalization of the Fillmore to black folks because it was public policy that destroyed our watering hole. Talk to us about it. Reparations, Doc. If you admit you atone, you ought to act and show fruits of repentance. Break it down, Doc.
No, I tell you that America is unique among nations to move from an adolescent sense of innocence to corruption without a mediating stage of maturity. So you're dealing with a nation that has grown wealthy and powerful, but it hasn't grown up. And innocence itself, as James Baldwin says, is the crime if you are the authorizer of the devastation and still view yourself as innocent. That's who we're dealing with. That's the country who we're dealing with. There's some marvelous human beings in the country that come in all colors. Come in all colors. But the dominant tendencies of the nation, just like California, which used to be Mexico, that was gentrification then. The land grab. It's a power grab. Then our precious indigenous brothers and sisters, it was their land before the Mexican got there. Rendered invisible, act as if they don't. Chickens come home to roost. You're going to reap what you sow. Truth crushed the earth will rise again. And the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. Like it is in our own lives. You want to know something truthful about yourself, then come to terms with your suffering and the insecurities and anxieties, and then work it through in order to become a more mature human being. So it is with nations. So it is with empires. So you can understand yourself as a city on the hill, the beacon of liberty, the last best hope of humanity, and you got enslaved folk as your economic foundation. You got indigenous peoples as your geographical land foundation. Quit lying about yourself. Du Bois's great essay, The Souls of White Folk, that's the one he wrote many years after The Souls of Black Folk. Sister Amy knows about that. Du Bois was here the same year, 1958. We should mention, let's do it right here. April 13th, 90th birthday, wasn't it? He got a picture of his office. Why is that important? Because Du Bois, like Paul Robeson, was living under house arrest. Exactly. Right before the pulpit. Nobody would touch Du Bois. Even his beloved Alpha brothers, and I'm an Alpha, just like Duke Ellington and Donny Hathaway, Martin King. But even the Alpha brothers got scared. Because he associated with communism. He associated with decolonization in Africa. And therefore, he could not be accepted by the mainstream. His best friend, Paul Robeson, living on 4645 Walnut Street in Philadelphia, in his sister's house, he's under house arrest too. He's the most famous black man in America in 1939, but in 1958, he's under house arrest. He doesn't even come out until he gives the eulogy for the great Lorraine Hansberry in 1965, a few days before Malcolm is shot. Malcolm was at the funeral to meet Paul Robeson, to give Lorraine Hansberry a hug. And just to add one more footnote, 6 days before that, Nat King Cole died. Got one of the greatest artists of the 20th century with vocals, gone. The greatest playwright to ever come out of the black community, Lorraine, 34 years old, gone. Malcolm, 39 years old, gone. But what is it about black people? Even when our giants leave, here comes some more. They just keep on coming. Keep on moving, building on the best of the past. So reparations become something not to be talked about in some narrow public policy viewpoint. Reparations ain't nothing but about the truth and justice. Let's tell the truth about a self-denying nation that doesn't want to come to terms with the truth about itself. And when we tell that truth and we see damage, then there ought to be some repair for the damage in the name of justice. This is not just about, again, skin pigmentation. Tell my young folk that all the time. Brother West, blackness, blackness, blackness. I understand, but I look at the world through the lens of the cross. And the cross is about unarmed truth, an unapologetic love for everybody with a tilt toward the least of these. Those Francophone called the wretched of the earth. And therefore we begin with our children and the elders and the poor and the prisoners, and then we get to the middle classes and the elites. And it's not that we don't love the elites, it's that we hate greed. We hate indifference. We hate callousness. And I learned in Vacation Bible School in Shiloh Baptist Church from my own blessed mama. She said, Christian hatred is a good thing. Because when you hate like a Christian, you hate the sin and still try to love the sinner. You hate the domination. You hate the oppression, but you can still stay in contact with the humanity of the oppressor. Because if the oppressor comes to the cross and is transformed by the blood, the oppressor can undergo transformation. Even the oppressor can undergo change. And Malcolm is a good example. Malcolm Little was a gangster, wasn't he? But he was touched by love and transformed into one of the greatest spokespersons and articulators of truth and justice in the history, not just of America, but of the world. So when we talk about reparations, you're talking about something that's first spiritual and cultural. One of our problems these days is that everybody want to talk about politics and don't want to get their soul together. Everybody want to talk about political disagreement and don't want to get integrity, honesty, decency, generosity, service to others, sacrifice for something bigger than you together. So you can end up with some pretty words and you're still just posing and posturing because you ain't willing to sacrifice for nothing. Third Baptist wouldn't exist. Frederick Douglass Haynes Sr. Yeah. Woo! Almost 40 years of loving Negroes. We were Negroes then. You know how much love that takes at that historical moment to love little Negroes like me and others, just like Willie P. Cook, just like Amos Brown, just like Amy Rogers Jones, Jonathan Butler. We can go right down the line on the love train. And reparations ain't nothing but an issue that we pick up on the love train. Because it's about truth and justice. But the reason why it is so far removed from the mainstream discourse is because black life is so cheap. It's hard to linger on black suffering for a while. So people would rather be seduced by distractions. And the whole culture in many ways is nothing but weapons of mass distraction from black suffering and black social misery and black dignity. And the only time you have to come to terms with it is when we hit the streets. Rebellion, all of a sudden, all the time, we need a conversation on race. Please, get off the symbolic crack pipe. You don't want no serious dialogue about race. These precious folk have been suffering all this time. You hardly said a mumbling word. You're just scared because they're a threat to your status quo. And you want to try to buy some of them off and co-opt just enough of them and pacify just enough of them. And the real warriors, you want to shoot them down like dogs and throw them off into your prison. So maybe black folk just fall right back into the normalcy and end up well adjusted to injustice. But some of us gonna go down maladjusted to injustice. Following Jesus, maladjusted, don't fit, undercutting, transgressive in the name of love is not in the name of your career. Because if it's just about your career, all they gotta do is give you a job and that'll shut you up. What about your cousins? What about your loved ones in the hood? What about others catching hell? What about the precious homeless brothers and sisters? 6% of San Francisco black, 40% homeless. What is going on? That's what I call a Keith Sweat moment. Something just ain't right.
Well, Doc, thank you. Let's
Miami
look here.
brothers and sisters, you understand what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Well, Dr. Davis, bring on some of those pithy, pointed, poignant questions. No dissertations, questions. Now is the time for you to have a Socratic moment with Dr. West. All right, questions.
Well, while they are coming, I wanted to, I don't know if folks, I see folks with their phones out. I don't know if folks really understand how monumental this moment is in time. I don't know if folks are taping or listening. I know it's being live streamed. This is a real life history lesson. I'm like trying to write down. He's talking about Lorraine Hansberry, and he is talking about Paul Robeson, and they are talking about King, all of these things. And these are folks that knew some of those folks, right? Like that understand that the evolution of where we are. And just, I want to say, as we go to the public, I had these books here, and you know, Reverend Brown, I know you will have respect for this. I just ordered another copy. This is The Negro's Church, and I just thought by Benjamin Elijah Mays.
One and only, one and only.
And I just think it is something to ponder and think that we are in a church right now having a conversation about reparations. And so, and I know Reverend Brown said no dissertation, right? But I want to say...
Go ahead, I'll give you permission.
Because there are a couple of things that I want folks to take note of. Because even beyond Christianity or the idea of religion, I need folks to understand, and I think that Dr. West and Reverend Brown have brought this home, but I want to say it again. The role of the black church in movements, the role of the black church from slavery through Jim Crow, through the civil rights movement, to even today. And another book you should get, Black Prophetic Fire, where Dr. West goes through and talks about the likes of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, and the idea of who is the prophetic fire, who is the prophetic leader of today, in the same manner that those folks were during the movement. But my point around Benjamin Mays and even James Cone, Benjamin Mays talks about the role of the church. He did the research because he was a sociologist, is that right, as well as a preacher. And he talked about the role of the church, first and foremost during slavery, when black folks were not allowed to be in power, not allowed to be together, and this idea of coming to church and becoming good preachers and ministers in that space so that they could then congregate. And when we talk about the symbolism of spiritual, so when you talk about Nate and the song and the movement there, when I think of Langston Hughes, right, where he says, hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. So when we talk about flight, and we talk about the role of the church, the gathering together, the being in space, and having these conversations about, I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. This idea of, we're going to fly away either with Harriet Tubman or with God, but some kind of way we're going to escape. So when we sit in this space, understand this building, understand the people, even if you are not religious, value the role of the minister who told people to go to church, who told people how to be in leadership, how to be developed, that what we have here now, Reverend Brown is a minister, and I think Dr. West has to admit that he is a preacher, pastor, speaker.
Oh, no.
Whether he is carrying the gospel of justice, right? Can I give you that?
Lay Christian gangster trying to do the right thing, but loving Jesus.
But if you will just indulge me, because I wanted to this line in this book, which I know Benjamin Mays was a mentor for Dr. Brown. Possibly the most significant technique of survival developed during the days of slavery might well be called a religious technique, which is represented by the Negro spirituals and by the early efforts to establish and develop the Negro church. The creation of the spirituals was not an accident in Negro life. It was an imperative creation in order that the slave might adjust himself to the new conditions in the new world. Negro church furnished the one and only organized field in which the slaves' suppressed emotions could be released, and the only opportunity for them to develop their leadership. So when we think about the role of the church, understand it's not just about being in this building and singing songs. It's about learning how to speak up. It's about learning how to talk to folks. Right. It's about advocacy, and ultimately it is about social justice. So do not downplay the role of the church and leaders like Dr. West and Reverend Brown.
Amen.
Brother Hatim. Another Morehouse grad up there.
Thank you. My name is, whoa, that's loud. Okay. Hey, my name is Hatim Mansouri. I'm 23 years old, and I have a question for the panel. I've been in a lot of spaces. Morehouse grad, I was on the debate team. I work for the DKI. I'm in a lot of spaces when they talk about reparations, and to me, as a fellow philosopher, I study philosophy, it just seems like common sense to me that reparations is like, I'm hurt, now heal me. It's very common sense to me, and so I just don't understand why it hasn't happened yet. And the fact that, the Japanese got reparations, the Jews got reparations, and even slave owners got reparations. Before slaves got reparations, slave owners got reparations. How did that make sense, man? You know what I'm saying? So my question is, what do you think is going to take for America to finally give reparations, and what do you think the timeline of that is? Give me a range.
Yeah, I tell you, it's always good to hear Morehouse, man. You Morehouse men on top of things. But one is this is part of the willful ignorance and the intentional blindness of white supremacy as a mode of pathology. That you can give the slaveholders in Washington, D.C. reparations, but not the slaves. Haiti can pay France reparations for decades after decades after decades after decades, but the enslaved Haitians don't get a penny. That's so sick, spiritually, morally. That's what we black folk have had to live with for 400 years, that kind of pathology as a dominant tendency. And you got the John Browns and Rabbi Heschels and others cutting against the grain on the vanilla sides of town, but millions of their cousins never got the memo. They're the ones who ruling things for the most part. Even today, with the white elites at the top, here we are in 2022 fighting for voting rights. You know how sick that is? Then why did you even tell me that you thought I was a citizen if I got to fight for my voting rights every 20 years and every 25 years? That reminds me of black folk on the job. We always on a perpetual audition. Oh, you were smart last week. Let's see whether you're going to be smart this week. Oh, now you're smart for 2 weeks. Now I'm going to assume you're not smart on the third week. Get out of my way, sick and pathology-oriented way of life. That's how sick white supremacy is. And in the end, if you're addicted to that kind of idolatry, then you're going to lose your whole democracy. And that's exactly what happened in the Civil War until 200 black soldiers left the plantations of what Du Bois called a general strike, so the economy couldn't function. And what did they do? They finally joined the Union Army that was losing, and those 200 black men broke the back, along with the white brothers, of the Confederate Army. The Union won the war, but white supremacy won the peace. So Jefferson Davis, how many years did he go to jail? He was the president of the Confederacy. He went to jail for 2 years, a little less than 2 years, and Cornelius Vanderbilt and others paid his bond because they said, oh, it's just a family quarrel. It didn't have nothing to do with slavery and black folk. That's the ways in which black life is cheap. It don't mean that much. So we have to affirm, love ourselves with our whites and browns and others, not just as allies. I don't like that word. In solidarity.
Yes, yes.
John Brown wasn't no ally. When Eminem went down on his knee, halftime, he wasn't no ally. He was in solidarity with a genius named Dre and others who shaped him. Dre should have been down there with him, but we won't go into that right now. But he went down as a white brother. How come? He had integrity. He had courage. He had conviction. He was willing to take a risk. And if else, you better not do it. If you do it, we're going to mess with you. Then mess with me anyway, because I'm down here now and the lights are on. That's the kind of movement we need for reparation. And you got to have folk of all colors to do that.
All right. Next, real quick, because Doc has a tight schedule. Quick questions. Make them quick. We're a great audience. Come on, real quick, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, God bless you, brother.
Hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
I'm so glad you're here. I want to get to words of what we can deal with this learning loss, the trauma and the healing and teaching and learning from what's happened these last 2 years in this pandemic. That's my question. What can we do for those of us
Learning
who actually
loss.
want to help these children?
Okay, children, learning loss. Doc.
Oh, the learning loss in school and so forth.
Yeah, this last 2 years, this loss, what can we do?
Yeah, no.
Policy-wise, how do we want to go quickly?
No, very quickly is legacy of Third Baptist. If the school's not doing what they ought to do,
Hey,
teach them in Sunday school.
hey, all right.
Teach them in freedom school. Teach them in the family. Teach them in networks. But we don't have enough folk who are keeping track in the deep, loving, and caring way with our precious children. But the ones who are there, they continue to be strong. We encourage them, and most importantly, we got to be one of them.
All right, next question. Real quick.
Thank you, Dr. West. God must have, lined this up perfectly because my question is related to that. So I'm an escapee from the academic plantation. My name is Dr. Nunley, right? And so what I want to know is, now that my community has embraced me, Dr. Stank and them, Dr. Davis, they're like, hey, come do this university with us. So help me, give me some advice so that I don't be too way up there, that I come down to my people the way I'm supposed to, but I keep them standards real high. So give me some advice on that. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay.
indeed, indeed. You think, for example, John Coltrane met a 14-year-old in Los Angeles after playing 2 sets, and the young brother's just playing his scales. And he asked Coltrane for lessons. He said, after the last set, I'm going to ask your parents for permission. We're going to practice together. You don't get deeper than training. But the love supreme was something he wasn't just blowing about. He remembered a black pastor who gave him the keys when he and his mother were getting kicked out of the projects in Philadelphia for making too much noise. And that pastor knocked on the door and said, take these keys. You can blow in my church all you want, anytime you want. There wouldn't be a John Coltrane if it wasn't for that black pastor. So when he's blowing Love Supreme, it ain't abstract. It's Naima. It's Alice. It's Monk. It's Miles. It's Clifford Brown. It's Gene Ammons. It's Big Mama Thornton. It's concrete. So it is with our young folks. So I don't have to worry about you. We ain't got to worry about you. You keep it real. But just know, as you keep it real, everyday folk that already set the highest standards in terms of the genius that's already there. We just got to get deep enough into it to know how high it is.
Okay.
I salute you.
Next.
I salute you.
Hi, my name is Allison Collins. I'm a parent, organizer, and an educator, and I serve for today on the SF Board of Education. And when we talk about Jim Crow in San Francisco, one of the places it's most evident is in our public education system.
Absolutely.
And I am currently being recalled because I listened when black children reached out and said they were experiencing racial abuse at their school. And this is 4 years after black children
Question,
organized a
please.
walkout
Question, please.
to City Hall. Me and my colleagues are being removed for making change, not just talk. And I want to know what the faith community can do to ensure that the voices of black children who've organized to ensure that they are treated with respect and dignity in their schools, that their voices are not undermined by our removal from the board.
No, wonderful question. Wonderful question. Appreciate your work and your witness, though. But I mean, historically, the prophetic wing of black churches and black mosques and black synagogues and so forth are always there with you. Because what you talk about in terms of raising your voice, as powerful as it is, you and I know it's not the first voice. A whole host of voices have been out there for a long time, and your voice now joins that chorus. And then the question becomes, what forms of organizations will you become part of so that you can be the leaven in the loaf along with the other leavens who are there? Because I know this brother here, his love for black children going all the way back. We won't even ask all the years because he's young, but he ain't no spring chicken.
81.
81. You just had a birthday a couple of days ago.
Yes, sir. Last Sunday.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Next question. We'll find audience. We're going to be through. We're going to hear everybody.
Okay, hi, my name is Cheryl Thornton. I'm a resident of San Francisco. I'm involved with redistricting. And my question is what I noticed, redistricting is a new land grab. And it's another process to remove black people. They develop the poor neighborhoods, and then they price us out. So my question is, even though reparations is going on, what can we do right now to stop the land grab?
Yeah, I mean, one, we got to raise our voice. I mean, I live in Harlem on 110th Street. Harlem used to be chocolate. It used to be 90%. It's now 37% chocolate. So San Francisco's not alone. San Francisco is in the vanguard for gentrification, for land grab and power grab. Ain't no doubt about that. But it's not alone. This is happening all across the country. This is what happens when you get a market-driven economy and the fundamental commitment is to money and profit rather than the precious quality and dignity of human life. We have to say it over and over and over again so people can see it, people can feel it, and most importantly, people are willing to fight for it. We had a big struggle of that in Brooklyn. And they brought some black folk in, black entertainers. Well, I won't mention no names, Jay-Z. I love Jay-Z and his genius. But all of a sudden, he now becomes a big partner to push out the black folk in Brooklyn to create the Barclays Center. And Reverend Herbert Daughtry, the National Black United Front, and a number of us with the Timbuktu Learning Center, we were fighting that. But they brought in the big black icon, and all of a sudden looked like he was speaking on behalf of the black community. And you would have thought he had 15%. He had 0.15% of the profits. I said, Jay-Z, brother, your music moves me, but your cowardliness disturbs me. It's true. Oh, Brother West, there you are, critical of black folk again, critical of Obama, critical of so. I hate evil. I don't care who is involved. I hate cowardliness across the board, but I love Jay-Z. I just want him to have courage. And I don't want him to get used and manipulated by white power structures against his own people because his own music flows from those very people itself. Kanye's the same way. Kanye was true to his music, he'd be a freedom fighter. He's a lyrical, artistic genius. But when he opens his mouth to speak, it's thoroughly confused. So as I say, go back and make your music, brother. Jesus does walk. Yes. You and Ryan Fest were right about that.
All right. Next.
Thank you, Dr. Brown, and I want to send my condolences to you, Mr. West, on the loss of your mother.
Oh.
Yes. I serve on the Reparations Committee here in San Francisco, and my question is, by listening to what you're saying, it's exactly what I see, and I'm asking you, what kind of guidance can you give us when we have to work with black elite folks who are more interested in money coming to themselves, their nonprofits, and supporting the systems that are already status quo, and believe that giving money to city departments will somehow trickle down to those brothers and sisters who are doing the worst and suffering the most in the community.
Wonderful. There's a wonderful moment in the great Carter G. Woodson's book, The Miseducation of the Negro. About page 143. He says, wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if the highly educated Negroes would fall in love with poor Negroes? That's Carter G. You see, a voice. He is elite. Harvard PhD.
Okay.
But he's loving, and he's organizing against any of the blindness, the greed, the narrowness of elite to anybody else.
These are the last ones real quick because Dr. West has a next Zoom call he has to get on. Please.
Thank you.
Real quick.
So my name is Dante King, and I recently wrote a book, and I want to give all three of you one. It's called The 400-Year Holocaust, White America's Legal, Psychopathic, and Sociopathic Black Genocide.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you autographed it too, my brother.
Yeah, I wanted you to...
You got good handwriting. Can read that.
Thank you very much. I'm so grateful for you and for this moment, for all of you. Can you speak on the intentionality? One of the things that I researched in my book and in my work is the intentionality behind building anti-Blackness into the American cultural affect, if you will. And the law is central to that in terms of, if you look at the laws through the colonial period, even into the United States, it's against Black people. So we have, by case law and by statute, America legislating that rape against Black women is legal. So can you speak to the intentionality of anti-Blackness so that, you know, we can understand where we are today?
Okay, this is a final question. Go ahead, Doctor.
I think we can say very quickly that one of the reasons why we Black folk are targeted in the way that we are is because we constitute a major threat if organized in the name of self-respect and self-determination and self-defense to the status quo. Black rage, Black organized resistance, ring down the curtain on America. That's what Civil War was about. That's what the 1960s was about when Martin got shot and there was 212 cities burning on fire. They had to protect the White House for the first time since the Civil War with the National Guard. And that was Black folk rebelling. It wasn't a revolution. We wasn't organized. But we know Martin loved us so. And it overflowed. So we're a threat. You see, that's why the FBI got to keep track on all Black love warriors and freedom fighters. Because if we connect the way we want, we're going to be sounding like the Golden Gate Quartet and Natural Four and the Dramatics. We're going to have so much soul that's silky but also empowering that they can't stand it. But they got to keep us divided, scared. Absolutely.
Next. Next, brother.
And thank you, Dr. Davis. I love you.
Congratulations, my brother.
Come on, brother, with your question, please.
Yes, my name is Larry Martin. I'm a college student here in San Francisco. And my question is, one of my key things that I like, that I advocate, is unity. I've been advocating unity from the West Coast, East Coast, from the Midwest. So my main question is, what are the main ingredients that can eliminate corruption in the Black community? Because I see that as doing my traveling throughout the major Black cities of America, I have discovered that something is blocking progress. So could you give me the main ingredients that can eliminate some of the corruption that's being administrated in
we
the
got
Black
your question.
community?
Go ahead, Doctor. Go ahead.
One is that you have to have people who have the right kind of spirituality such that they have a calling, not just a career.
That's it. That's the answer.
You see, the calling's always deeper.
The calling is
They tied to the kingdom. Seek ye first the kingdom. That's the kind of folk you got to have.
right.
You see, then you render all of us accountable in light of that willingness to empty oneself, give oneself, and serve others.
Okay, next, please.
Thank you so much.
Hello, Dr. West, Dr. Brown. I'm Pastor Dorn, and I pastor the Emmanuel Church of God in Christ in San Francisco.
God bless you.
And
God bless
we haven't been around 170 years, but we'd have been around 80 years in
That's
San
all right.
Francisco,
That's
82
all right.
years. And we are, I have young people, we have Young People's Day every third Sunday. And it's our Black History celebration. But you know, what's been coming through from them is they said that, Pastor, we're tired of being approximately free. If we're free, we're not free enough. And they tell me, they said they're tired of singing the song, "We Shall Overcome," because of that last word, someday. They want to know, when is that day coming? So we've been talking about reparations. I want to know what the next step is, because we're tired of talking. We want to see those reparations in our lifetime. In I'm from Hunters Point. I was born and raised in San Francisco. I'm a unicorn. In Hunters Point, we had the naval station that was closed down, not by the white man, but it was Barbara Lee and Ron Dellums who advocated for that. And the government hired generations. That was ways for us to make money. When they closed those bases down, that got rid of jobs for many. And now we're in a lawsuit because they haven't cleaned it up right.
Okay, the question.
No, I mean, the question, the challenge, my dear brother, is we've got to fight, and we have to try to fight more effectively, even though we're up against a whole lot. So when young folk, they say, "I want it now," you tell them, this ain't no push-button situation. You got to get out there and fight for it. I mean, y'all know ADOS, the organization concerned about reparations? You can work with them. You got reparation groups out there. Now, I've been in reparations for 42 years. Ain't seen a breakthrough yet on the ground. I was with Mother Moore in Harlem, who's one of the godmothers of the reparation movement. I sat at her feet. But each generation got to fight. Now, we're making some movement in terms of other terrain, but not necessarily reparation. Now, it's true, California's making a breakthrough.
San Francisco, too.
San Francisco, too.
But Dr. West, I will just say this. I would ask you to say what you said earlier today about black folks, because as we do this work for reparations, let's see who the real enemy is, and let's not spend our time fighting with each other.
That's right.
Instead of fighting the people that have been blocking reparations for decades, if not centuries.
That's very important. That's very important. And that's why cooperation and respect for one another is probably even more important than abstract unity. You see, the Garveyites, the Black Nationalists, the Nation of Islam, and so forth, all organizations can, in their own distinctive ways, be forces for good. You don't have to agree with everything in that organization in order to cooperate with respect. You see. But you got to be true to yourself.
Yeah. Next question. And these are the last ones. Those in line.
Thank you for this day. And I need some help. That help is needed. How can we get over to our people that this month, February 22, ends Black History Month? How can we get over to our people that every day is Black History? Every day that we look in the mirror and see ourselves. And if we were to get this out to everyone as a movement to know that I'm somebody, not just in February, I don't have to wait until 2023.
Okay, Doc,
Right
we got the question.
Got it?
Yes, sir.
I'm waiting for the answer.
I think the answer's in your question, given the wisdom and the way in which you formulated it. We got to love black people, fight for black people, love truth and love justice every day of our lives. Absolutely. Very much so. So I think you said it, my brother.
All right.
You laid it out.
Thank you, Doctor. Next person.
And then I think Dr. West does have a hard stop, so I know that he's...
We got three more. We got, I think, two more brothers and a sister here.
Okay,
But
so after-
we might have to cut the line off because
That's
We
the
cut,
last-
this is
last
cut
is
the line here.
right after the second brother there.
Yes.
Hi, yes, thank you
You step
Yeah,
right in there.
step
and
into
talk
the
right
mic.
into that mic, though, sister.
Come closer.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you
Okay,
go.
perfect. I was just thanking you and saying thank you for being in space today. So my question was around showing up in solidarity for the Black community as a Latina. How can I do more to support reparations for the Black community here in San Francisco?
Well, we appreciate the question and the kind of solidarity that you're talking about because we need black, brown, brown, black. We need indigenous people, black. If we got solidarity based on morality and spirituality, then it cuts across the grain.
Okay.
All white brothers and sisters catching hell, we in solidarity with them because it's the right thing to do. But we have to begin in our own communities. So the Latino and Latina community is crucial given all the attacks and assaults. And we need to have black folk in solidarity with you. Then you decide when reparations, you join a reparations organization and say, I'm coming in speaking Spanish when I want to.
All right. Next person.
Thank you, Dr. West and Pastor, for putting this on. My name is Larry Lionel. I had a question about, it took 1 year for the government to create money on this COVID epidemic. It's been over 400 plus years. We've still been suffering. We can't even get a committee. Brother mentioned earlier that it's been time. Nat Turner, Stoner Rebels, they weren't just fighting for just being free. They knew that this was our land. Before Khazarian Jews, before hybrid Europeans started changing our names from our indigenous names.
Question, brother.
Question is, how can we trust any government officials when they're nothing but administrators of stolen land?
I appreciate the question, brother. Don't walk away. Don't walk away. I want to look in your eyes. Look in your eyes. Yeah. No, you can't throw down like that and just turn around. Well, wait now.
I was going to sit down and listen.
I know. That's wonderful. Thing is, you always want to try people out and see if they're true.
How long?
It's a good question. You got like a jazz man. You got to time it right.
I play piano, so I understand.
Depends on what the context is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Depends on if it looks like they're making progress, fine. If they're obsessed with their progress and think they're making so much progress, you remember what Malcolm said, you don't stab folk in the back 6 inches, pull it out a few inches and celebrate your progress.
True, but Chevron and Shell are still controlling our oil, which is right here in California.
And you tell the truth about them in terms of their greed. And you tell the truth about them in terms of their need to make that accountable to the public as citizens across the border, as persons who are in need of it.
They can't afford reparations.
Well, no, they can afford it. Watch how much money gonna flow in terms of this war that's taking place. Watch the trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. How much did they spend in Afghanistan? 6.7 trillion. How much did they spend in Iraq? How much did they spend any time they go to war? When they go to war, it's open resources. It's just when it comes to us that they broke us the 10 Commandments. No, that's hypocrisy. We pointed out. But you got to be part of an organization, though, brother, because I like your spirit.
Thank you.
You want to be organized now.
Correct.
All right.
I think we got our last brother.
Yeah, come on.
We adding some more.
This is it. We have to cut it off right here. I'm sorry.
Dr. West, my name is Joe Engler, and I stand before you in a law enforcement uniform, and I think it's a missed opportunity if I don't ask you a very unfair question if I'm the last question.
Brother, you ask any question you like. You be free.
What is the best way, your advice, to heal the breach that's occurred between law enforcement and the community, all communities? We're missing something.
Absolutely.
We won't have the last 2 years that we've had and beyond the 2 years.
Absolutely.
So very humbly I ask for any advice on how to heal the breach. And we're going to have to keep going back to this. But any advice is welcome, sir.
No, I appreciate your question, though, brother. It's a heartfelt question, very crucial question. I think there's two things, though, brother. One is that we're going to have brothers and sisters in the police uniform who can earn the respect and the trust of everyday people in the community. And you earn that by means of thoroughly protecting and serving the people who live in that community by example. Not by slogan, by example. So that you say, I'm a person who cares. Oh, I shouldn't be trusting you. You Irish and so. I'm going to be there when you in trouble. Over and over again. And I can rest assure you that Precious Jamal and Letitia, seeing you do that over and over and over and over and over again, will say, you a little different than some of these other ones who ain't treating us right. But the next step is, when one of our precious brothers and sisters gets shot, we need more voices in the police department to shatter the culture of silence and say, as a policeman, I'm still a moral human being. I'm a spiritual human being. And my fellow policeman was not just wrong. He needs to be rendered accountable. He needs to go to jail based on a fair trial. And I say that as a person, as a citizen. And then you put your uniform on and go out there and keep serving the people. If we had more policemen like that, and I know you aspire to be like that, we'd have a different kind of dynamic. But that's the beginning of an answer. But God bless you, though, brother. I know we got it wrong.
Thank you. Let's give it up again for Dr. Cornel West.